Rain fell softly through the dense canopy of the forest, each droplet whispering against the leaves like secrets meant only for the night. Beneath that sound, a broken cough echoed, rough and weary. An old man, wrapped in a tattered brown coat, stumbled through the mud. His name was Elias, though few remembered it. Once a man of books and dreams, he had long been reduced to the hollow label of the homeless old man. He found refuge near the edge of the forest most nights, close to where an abandoned cabin leaned drunkenly against the trees. But tonight, something felt different. As he dragged a bundle of sticks for firewood, he heard it, a faint cry, soft, human, and trembling. He froze. The sound came again, closer this time, fragile as glass. Elias followed it deeper into the woods, his boots sinking into the damp soil. His lantern flickered against the fog, throwing trembling shapes on the trunks around him. Then he saw her, a young girl, no older than 8, curled beneath the roots of an old oak, shivering violently. Her hair clung to her face, her clothes soaked, and her small hands were raw with cold. He knelt beside her. Hey there," he said in a hoarse whisper, his voice as uncertain as the wind. "It's all right. You're safe now." The girl flinched and tried to pull away. "Don't touch me," she cried, her voice weak. Elias raised his palms gently. "I won't hurt you, I promise. You'll freeze to death out here." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. He removed his coat and wrapped it around her tiny frame. She stared at him, eyes wide, frightened, but desperate for warmth. He lifted her carefully and carried her back to his cabin. The cabin smelled of old wood, ash, and rain. Elias laid her near the small fire he managed to keep alive and fed it until the flames grew brighter. The girl's shivering eased as the color returned to her cheeks. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Clara," she whispered, clutching the coat tightly. "Clara," he repeated, tasting the name like something precious. "How did you end up out here alone?" She hesitated, glancing toward the door, as if afraid something or someone might come for her. "They left me," she said finally. "I woke up and the car was gone." Elias frowned. "Who left you?" "My father," she murmured. "He said he'd be right back, but he never came." For a moment, Elias forgot the rain, the cold, the hunger that haunted him. The only thing he felt was a sharp sting of memory, because once long ago he had said those same words to his own daughter before walking away for good. He reached into a corner and brought her a tin cup of warm water. "You'll stay here tonight," he said gently. "No one should be alone in a place like this." Clara nodded slowly. Her eyes fluttered shut as exhaustion pulled her into sleep. Elias sat beside her, staring into the flames, his face shadowed with guilt and something like hope. But outside the cabin, in the deep dark of the forest, something stirred. A pair of headlights cut through the mist. The hum of an engine grew closer, then stopped. Elias froze, listening. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Someone was out there. He moved to the window, peering through the cracks in the wood. A man stood in the clearing, tall and sharply dressed despite the rain. He was holding something, an expensive flashlight that glinted like steel. His eyes scanned the trees with precision. "Clara!" the man shouted, his voice echoing through the woods. "Clara, where are you?" Elias's heart thudded in his chest. Was this the father who abandoned her, or something far worse? He turned to the sleeping girl, his weathered hands trembling slightly. He couldn't let her be taken, not until he knew who that man truly was. So he reached for the small hunting knife he kept by the door, the only remnant of a life long buried, and stepped quietly into the night. The rain had stopped, but the air felt heavier. The man with the flashlight was moving closer to the cabin now, calling the girl's name again, softer this time, almost pleading. Elias stayed hidden behind a tree, watching. Then, faintly, he heard the man mutter into a device clipped to his jacket. "Target located. She's close. Do not engage until I give the signal." Elias's blood ran cold. Target? He clenched the knife tighter, every instinct burning alive again. Whoever that man was, he wasn't a grieving father. He took one slow step backward toward the cabin, then another, careful not to make a sound. But a twig snapped underfoot. The man's flashlight whipped toward him instantly, blinding white light slicing through the darkness. "You there," the man barked. "Step out slowly." Elias didn't move. His mind raced. If he ran, the man would find the cabin. If he stayed, he'd be caught. He had to think. Fast. Inside, Clara stirred in her sleep. The fire crackled louder, casting flickers of light through the cracks in the door. And in that fleeting glow, something about her face, her features, caught the light in a way Elias hadn't noticed before. Something familiar. Something that made his heart stop entirely. Elias stared at the faint light, falling across Clara's sleeping face. The fire's glow danced over her small, delicate features, her nose, her chin, the soft curl of her hair. But it was her eyes, half open in sleep, that froze him. He had seen that color before. A clear, pale hazel that looked almost golden when touched by firelight. His breath caught in his chest. That same color had stared up at him once, from a crib in a small apartment nearly 20 years ago. No, it couldn't be. He blinked hard, shaking his head, but the memory didn't leave him. His hands trembled as he turned back toward the window. The man outside was still there, scanning the forest edge with his flashlight. Elias ducked lower, pressing his shoulder against the door. His pulse hammered in his ears. He could hear the man's boots crunching through wet leaves, drawing closer. "Clara!" The man called again, his voice now low and cold. "Come on out, sweetheart. You don't want to make this harder than it already is." The way he said it, calm, measured, but with something cruel hiding underneath, made Elias's stomach twist. That wasn't the voice of a worried parent. That was the voice of someone hunting. Elias glanced once more at Clara, still sleeping soundly, unaware of the danger standing just beyond the thin wooden door. He had no plan, no weapon beyond the dull knife in his hand, and no reason the world would believe him over the man in the expensive coat. But he had made one mistake before, walking away from his family, and he wouldn't make another. Not tonight. He crouched low and slipped toward the back of the cabin. There was an old crate beneath the window, and behind it, a narrow gap in the wall he'd never bothered to patch. He pushed the crate aside quietly and peered through the gap. The man's silhouette was closer now, less than 10 feet away, his flashlight beam gliding over the door, the windows, the firelight leaking from inside. "Found it," the man muttered into his earpiece. Small structure, probably hers. Moving in. Elias's throat tightened. He didn't have long. He crawled back toward Clara, shaking her gently. "Clara," he whispered. "Wake up quickly." Her eyes fluttered open. "Well, what's wrong?" "There's someone outside," he said softly. "You have to be very quiet and do exactly what I say." Fear flickered in her gaze. "Is it my dad?" "I don't think so," he murmured. "Now listen carefully. There's a small trapdoor under the floorboards by the stove. You crawl in there and don't make a sound until I come for you. Understand?" She hesitated for a second, but his calm, steady tone convinced her. Elias lifted the loose board and helped her slip into the narrow crawl space below. "Stay still," he whispered. "No matter what you hear." The moment the board settled back into place, there was a hard knock on the door. Elias straightened slowly, gripping the knife. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice rough but steady. "Evening," came the reply. "I'm looking for a lost child. Little girl, dark hair, maybe 8 or 9. You seen her?" Elias hesitated, heart pounding. "No," he lied. "Ain't seen anyone out here but foxes." There was silence. Then the man laughed softly. "Is that so?" The door creaked under a sudden shove. "Mind if I come in, old man? Just to make sure." "I mind," Elias said firmly. The man sighed, then the sound of metal clicking echoed outside. Something mechanical, deliberate. Elias didn't need to see it to know it was a gun. He took one slow step back, trying to think, trying to buy time. "Who are you?" he asked. "Why are you after her?" "That's not your concern," the man replied, voice sharp now. "Step aside. You're interfering with something you don't understand." Elias looked toward the fire. The old stove beside it still glowed faintly red from the heat. He felt the smallest flicker of an idea. "I said step aside." the man shouted, slamming his shoulder against the door. The wood splintered. Elias grabbed the poker from beside the stove and thrust it into the coals, the metal hissing and turning orange. He braced himself. The door burst open. The man stormed in, his flashlight beam slicing across the room. His gun gleamed in his hand. "Where is she?" Elias moved fast for someone his age. He swung the red-hot poker with all his strength, striking the gun from the man's grip. The metal sizzled against the man's coat, and he cried out, stumbling backward. Elias lunged, shoving him into the table. They crashed to the floor, the old board shaking under their weight. The man snarled, catching Elias by the collar, punching him hard in the ribs. Elias gasped but didn't let go. They struggled, grunting, the fire throwing mad shadows on the walls. The man's hand scrambled toward his belt, reaching for something, another weapon maybe, but Elias slammed the poker down again, catching his wrist. The man cursed loudly. "You don't know who you're dealing with, old fool," he hissed. "Maybe not," Elias growled, breathing hard, "but I know you're not her father." The man's eyes flashed. "Father?" He smirked darkly. "No, I work for the people who want her back." "Back?" Elias echoed. "What are you talking about?" The man twisted suddenly, pushing Elias off him. He scrambled to his knees, clutching his burned wrist. "You wouldn't understand," he spat. "That girl isn't what you think she is. She's not some lost child. She's property." Elias froze, stunned. "Property?" The man sneered. "An experiment. Worth million. You think she just wandered off? You think she's human?" Elias's mind reeled. He shook his head. "You're lying." "Am I?" the man said coldly. "Ask her yourself, if you live long enough." He lunged for the gun lying by the door. Elias tried to reach it first, but the man kicked him hard, sending him sprawling. He grabbed the weapon, aimed it straight at Elias's chest. You should have stayed out of it. Before he could fire, a sudden flash lit the room. A burst of white light so bright it blinded them both. The air crackled. The man screamed, clutching his eyes, dropping the gun. Elias shielded his face, blinking furiously. And then, just as quickly, the light was gone. The cabin fell silent again, except for the hiss of the fire. The man lay unconscious on the floor, his clothes smoking faintly. Elias looked toward the stove, toward the floorboards. Slowly, Clara crawled out, her small hands trembling. Her eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, no longer hazel, but golden, bright, and unnatural. "Clara," Elias whispered, his voice shaking. What did you do?" She looked up at him, tears in her strange, glowing eyes. "I didn't mean to," she said softly. "It just happens when I'm scared." Elias took a hesitant step toward her. "Were you, child?" She shook her head. "I don't know. They always said I was special. They did things to me. Tess, I ran away." The old man felt the air around her shimmer slightly, like heat rising from pavement. She wasn't lying. He could feel it in his bones. Whatever she was powerful and terrified. Elias knelt, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. "You're not a thing," he said firmly. "You're a person. Don't let them tell you otherwise." She looked at him, searching his face for something, truth, safety, maybe even love. And for the first time, she smiled faintly. Outside, faint sirens began to echo in the distance, growing closer, weaving through the forest roads. More of them were coming. Elias's jaw tightened. He knew he couldn't fight them all, but he could run. He could protect her. He could finally do something right. He grabbed his old coat, threw it around her shoulders again, and glanced once at the unconscious man. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "Now." Clara nodded, gripping his hand. Together, they stepped into the cold night, vanishing into the trees as the first blue lights flickered between the branches behind them. The forest had changed. What once felt like a sanctuary now seemed alive with whispers of pursuit. Helicopters in the distance, boots trampling wet soil, the growl of engines echoing through the trees. Elias and Clara ran without direction, guided only by instinct and desperation. The night was cold, but her small hand is felt like fire, trembling, soft, fragile, yet alive with something impossible. "Don't stop," Elias urged, breath ragged. "We just need to make it past the ridge. There's an old tunnel up there. No one knows about it." Clara nodded, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark like twin stars. Every now and then, flashes of light shimmered around her, as if her fear was trying to tear through her control. Elias saw it, but said nothing. He knew she was fighting herself as much as the people chasing them. Behind them, the first searchlights pierced through the trees. Shouts followed. "Spread out. Find them both. The girl's not to be harmed. The old man is expendable." Elias tightened his grip. "Move, Clara, move." They broke through a line of thickets and stumbled into a clearing. The moon hung low, pale and cold. A stream ran through the clearing, its water black and fast. Across it, the hill rose steeply, and near its base, half buried in ivy, the mouth of an old drainage tunnel waited like an open secret. Elias pushed Clara ahead, helping her across the slippery stones. His old bones screamed in protest, but he kept moving. Behind them, beams of light grew brighter. The sound of men shouting turned to the unmistakable click of safety levers snapping off. "Elias!" Clara cried. He turned just in time to see the red dot of a targeting laser crawl across his chest. He lunged forward, pulling Clara down with him. A shot cracked through the night, shattering a branch inches above their heads. He didn't think, he just acted. He threw his body over hers and rolled them both into the stream. The icy water swallowed them instantly. They fought the current breathless, the world spinning into a blur of water and moonlight. When they surfaced, gasping, they were further downstream, closer to the tunnel. Elias dragged himself out, coughing, pulling Clara up beside him. She looked terrified, drenched, her hair clinging to her face, but her eyes still burned with that strange inner fire. "They'll find us," she whispered. "Not if we disappear first," Elias rasped. He pulled her into the tunnel. The air inside was damp and cold, but silent, attuned for sound. He guided her through the darkness, one hand brushing the wall, the other holding hers. For a while, the only sound was their breathing and the distant thunder of the stream behind them. But as they moved deeper, the walls began to glow faintly, reflecting a soft light from Clara's skin. Elias stopped. "You're glowing again," he said quietly. "I can't control it when I'm scared," she whispered. "It just happens." He looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't just scared. She was exhausted, on the edge of collapse, but trying to stay brave. He saw his daughter in her face. The same stubbornness, the same will to survive. He knelt and touched her cheek gently. "Hey, listen to me, Clara. You're not a mistake. You're not an experiment. You're a miracle. And they're afraid of what they can't control." Her lower lip trembled. "You really think so?" "I know so," he said. "And I think maybe you were meant to find me." She didn't answer, but she leaned forward and hugged him tightly. For a moment, the tunnel felt warmer, almost alive. But then came a distant echo, footsteps, voices. They had been found. Elias stood quickly. "Keep moving." They ran deeper into the tunnel until it opened into an old underground chamber, wide and circular, with broken machinery scattered around, relics from some forgotten age. There was nowhere else to go. Elias turned toward the entrance. The light from the soldiers' flashlights flickered in the distance. Clara clutched his arm. "They'll take me," she said, "and they'll hurt you. Not if I can stop them." "Elias, no." He smiled, a tired, gentle smile. "You remind me of someone I once lost. Someone I wasn't there for. I won't make that mistake again." The soldiers' shadows appeared at the mouth of the tunnel. A voice shouted through a megaphone, calm but commanding, "Step away from the girl. You don't understand what she is." Elias shouted back, "I understand enough. You don't own her." There was a pause. Then the man from before stepped forward, his hand bandaged from the burn, his expression twisted with cold rage. "You should have stayed dead, old man." Elias glanced at Clara. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back. But promise me." Tears welled in her glowing eyes. "I promise." He nodded once. "Good girl." Then he turned toward the men, gripping his knife, though he knew it was useless against guns. His body trembled, but not from fear, from purpose. For the first time in years, he felt alive. The man raised his weapon. "Last chance, Elias." "Move aside." Elias took a single step forward, shaking his head. "You'll have to go through me." The air seemed to hold its breath. Then came the deafening crack of a gunshot. Clara screamed. The bullet tore into Elias's shoulder, spinning him backward. He fell to his knees, but didn't collapse completely. With a hoarse growl, he pushed himself upright again, blood soaking his sleeve. "Run!" he shouted. Clara froze, trembling. But then the air around her shimmered violently. Her eyes blazed gold, brighter than ever. The ground vibrated beneath her feet. The soldiers stopped in confusion. "Stay back!" she cried. "Stay away from him." A pulse of light exploded from her body, blinding them all. The tunnel shook, dust raining from the ceiling. The soldiers were thrown backward as if struck by an invisible force. Elias shielded his face, barely able to breathe. When the light faded, Clara stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by floating shards of energy that flickered like tiny suns. The walls around her cracked, and the floor hummed with power. The man tried to stand, dazed. "You can't run forever, Clara. You're one of us. You were made for..." His words cut off as Clara lifted her hand. The air around him shimmered, bending light, bending reality. His body froze mid-step, then disintegrated into dust that drifted away like smoke. Elias stared, speechless. Clara turned toward him, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." He reached for her, his hand trembling. "It's all right," he said softly. "It's over now." She shook her head, sobbing. "No, they'll keep coming. They'll never stop." Elias swallowed hard. He looked at her, this strange, frightened girl who carried the power of a storm inside her. "Then we'll make them stop." "How?" He smiled faintly. "By showing them that you're not their weapon, you're their reckoning." She blinked through her tears, unsure whether to believe him. But something in his eyes gave her strength. Together, they climbed out of the tunnel as dawn broke over the forest. Smoke and fog rose between the trees, painting the world gold and gray. Elias's shoulder throbbed, his steps heavy, but he didn't stop. When they reached the ridge, Clara turned to look back. The forest below was silent again, except for the faint hum of energy still lingering in the air. "Where will we go?" she asked. Elias looked toward the horizon. "Endless mountains, rivers, light. Somewhere they can't find us. Somewhere you can be free." She hesitated, then whispered, "And you?" He chuckled softly. "I think I've finally found what I was looking for." They walked until the sun rose high, its warmth washing over them. For a while, neither spoke. But as the light touched Clara's skin, her glow faded, replaced by something human, fragile, and beautiful. Elias watched her, a deep ache in his chest, the ache of redemption. He knew the world would never be the same again. Maybe she wasn't just a lost girl. Maybe she was the beginning of something new. Behind them, in the shattered ruins of the tunnel, the remnants of destroyed devices flickered one last time. Somewhere far away, unseen by either of them, a screen lit up in a sterile lab. A woman's voice said coldly, "Subject Alpha has escaped. Initiate Protocol Genesis." And far above, in the early morning sky, a faint streak of light moved across the horizon. Not a plane, not a comet. Summit alive, burning silently through the heavens. Elias looked up, squinting at it. He smiled, though he didn't understand why. Clara followed his gaze and smiled too, slipping her small hand into his. They didn't know what waited ahead, but for the first time in both their lives, they were not running from something. They were running toward it, toward freedom, toward truth, toward the unknown that shimmered like light through the trees. And somewhere deep in the forest they left behind, the echo of Elias's promise lingered, quiet but unbreakable. "No one will ever take you again.